Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle and I am the owner and creator over at Damn Fancy Creations. If you guys are not aware, I do have two other tutorial groups. I have a large tutorial group on Facebook and I have a smaller, more personal patron group. Both groups are super helpful. I try to teach you guys new things and just create a community that we can all share and be helpful to one another. I do want to give a shout out to one of my patrons really quick. Her name is Rhonda and her business is Prissy Bling Creations. I am going to link her info in the description. Please go show her some love and support her in her tumbler making journey. For today's tutorial, I am super excited to share this with you guys. This is not a new concept. I did see a tumbler like this in another group. I cannot remember who the original creator was, or I would give them credit in this video, but I did want to make something kind of similar, so it is a little bit out of my comfort zone to do this type of cup. I like more simplistic tumblers. This one is definitely not simplistic. There are a lot of different elements going on. There are a lot of steps to this tumbler, but it is definitely something that you guys can do, and I am going to show you how. So if you guys are ready to see how I create these fun summer tumblers, let's get started. Alright guys, so the very first thing you're going to want to do is prep your tumblers and spray paint them white. I do this for all of my tumblers no matter what my base color is going to be. For these tumblers, we are just going to leave the base white. The glitter that I am going to be using is pretty opaque. It's a iridescent color, so the base color is not going to change the color too much. So I am smoothing on some epoxy. Usually for the epoxy method, you will use 5 milliliters maybe, but for this glitter, it is very chunky. It is irregular cut, so I do like to be a little more heavy-handed with my epoxy so that the epoxy will soak up a little bit more of that glitter. That way I can kind of press the glitter down into the epoxy and it will stick a little bit better. And sorry if you guys can hear my screen door creaking. It is a little bit windy today. For the bottoms of the tumbler, I am not being really heavy-handed though. I definitely do not want any weird epoxy bumps or lumps on the bottom that could make our tumbler sit a little uneven. And once I get done applying my epoxy and kind of wiping it off, thinning it out a little bit, I will hit all of my cups with my torch. I did have several cups on the top layer of my turner, so I had to pop their bubbles as well. I will typically just torch it for one rotation and then you should be good to go, especially on the base layer. You're not really going to see those bubbles. I just like to pop bubbles just to make sure there's not going to be a large bubble that kind of pops through the glitter. So these are my glitters I am using. They are my Neon Irregular Cut collection you can find on thedrunkflamingo.com. And I am really just kind of sprinkling this glitter all the way around the cup. just in random sections. I am just going to do each color like that. You guys can see that I am just barely sprinkling this on. Since it is an irregular cut glitter, I don't want a lot of shards kind of sticking up, because that means you will have to apply more epoxy layers and you will have to do a lot more sanding, which is never fun. It is probably my least favorite part about making cups. And my little corgi is barking at a car. So now I'm going to go in with the next color, and I am just going to kind of sprinkle it beside the color I just laid. And it will kind of fill in any of those little spaces that I may have missed with the first color. But I am just kind of barely tapping it on there so it just sticks to the tumbler. And after the blue, we are going to go in with our next color. I really do like these glitters because while they aren't your typical sparkly glitter, they do have a lot of depth and dimension, and they are very shiny and iridescent. So the end result is really pretty. And now we're going to go in with our final color, which is the yellow. And we're just going to sprinkle that in any of the little blank spots that I see, just to make sure that all of the white is covered. And after we are done with this, if you see any prickly spots, you can definitely go pat them down with your finger, or you can get some parchment paper, wax paper, something like that, and just press it down that way. I just decided to use my gloved finger and just tap everything down really quickly. The only real part that I did have to worry about tapping down was the bottoms, just because since I kind of threw the glitter on the bottom, there was a little bit more glitter on the bottom versus the rest of the cup that I kind of just sprinkled on. And after you get done tapping all your glitter done, we are going to let these spin for a little while. I used Fast Set as my base layer, so it should be dry in about 2 hours. and then we will apply our next layer of epoxy. So once our first layer of epoxy is dried, if you feel like you need to brush off the excess glitter, you can definitely do that. I did not really have any with these cups, so I went into directly applying the epoxy. I will say with the larger irregular shaped glitter, it tends to produce a little bit more bubbles as you're applying the epoxy. I think just the glitter flakes kind of form air bubbles as it moves around. So I do focus a lot on popping bubbles. Definitely make sure you pop your bubbles after you apply this layer of epoxy. And again, because of this glitter, it's a little bit more thicker, maybe a little bit more tricky to work with than your average fine glitter or chunky mix. I do apply an epoxy layer that is a little bit thicker. I typically do not measure my epoxy because I typically apply epoxy to so many cups at a time, but I would probably say about 30 milliliters of epoxy for a 20 or 30 ounce tumbler. So maybe about 10 more than you're used to. But again, that's just my preference. If you would rather do thinner layers, you can definitely do that. You also don't want to get it so thick that you cannot pop the bubbles. So that's also something to keep in mind. So once you're done applying your epoxy, we are going to pop our bubbles. I will typically apply 1 or 2 more layers of epoxy, and then we will be ready to apply our decals. So here are 2 cups that are finished. I did not sand any part of the tumbler besides the bottom rim and the top rim. I did not want to sand the body of the tumbler because I am going to be applying the power wash, and I don't want my sanding marks to show through. So for this tumbler, my leaves are going to be peekaboo. So I am just applying the body of the leaf to my tumblers now. I just printed out a few different leaf shapes. We have some monstera leaves and some other tropical leaves that we're going to be using. Basically what I did, I will link the file that I used, and all I did was select the leaf and do an image trace, and I only traced the outer edge, not the entire image. So the outer edge is where we get our cut shape for the body of the leaf. So none of the other little parts are going to show up when we print those, or cut those, I should say. And I did have some that were random colors. I decided that I could try to use some of the body part of the leaves that I cut for the outline. That way I'm not just wasting vinyl and just using the outline of the leaf. So here is another attempt at me trying to save on vinyl and use 2 parts of my leaf. This one was kind of a pain to get off because it had so many little tiny pieces, but I did it. And I just kind of randomly put them on the tumbler. And then I also wanted some leopard spots to be peekaboo as well. So I just randomly placed them around the tumbler. And I knew I was also going to be applying colored leopard spots after I power washed, so I didn't want a ton of leopard spots all over my tumbler that were peekaboo. And after we get done applying all of our vinyl, it will be time to power wash. So to do the power wash method, you are going to use the Dawn Power Wash. It just basically sprays foam. I use flat white primer, and then I will have a bucket of water. So to apply the power wash, I hold the tumbler pretty far away from me and then just lightly spritz the tumbler in the power wash. Whatever area is covered in the soap, it will not get spray paint on it. So if you want larger areas that are peekaboo, then you will need to spray more power wash. If you want just a little bit of the glitter showing through, then you just need a little bit of the power wash, which is pretty much how I did this technique. Just small little spurts. So my second attempt was kind of out of frame, sorry guys, but it's the same thing. I just sprayed some power wash, then the spray paint, and then pouring the water over it. And you guys can see the glitter peeking through. And after this spray paint is completely dry, we are going to take our fun little CCDIY tools and peel up our vinyl that we applied before. And I like to work kind of one decal at a time. That way I remember what shape it was that I just pulled up. Sometimes it's hard to tell with the power wash outline at what shape was there. So I like to just work one decal at a time. And I am speeding this up for you guys just because it does take quite a while to pull up the decals and then lay the outline. But since I'm doing 2 cups, you guys should be able to see what I'm doing. So now I'm just laying the outline of the leaf that we removed. Oh, one other thing to note is that before I apply my vinyl, I do take my cups to the sink and wash them with soap just to get any of that Dawn Power Wash spray residue off of the cup, sometimes that can interfere with how the vinyl actually adheres to the cup. So I just want to make sure that the vinyl will stick as well as it can. I will also typically seal in these decals with Counterculture's Quick Coat. Typically this metallic vinyl or vinyl that is like this tends to like to lift once you apply epoxy, so I want to make sure that it is going to stick down no matter what. So on to leaf number 2. And I will say that for my decals, even if I remove them, I just use regular vinyl. I know a lot of people like to use removable vinyl or things like that. I just don't keep any of that stuff on hand, so I just like to use what I do have, which is just regular vinyl. And if you guys do not have these CCDIY tools, I definitely recommend getting them. I did not know that I needed them until I had them. So I find so many uses for them, and when I cannot find them, I get really upset. So again, we are just removing decals and then applying the outline. Next time, I would probably pick leaves that didn't have so many tiny pieces to them, but they still turned out really cool, so. And I also will point out that you guys can see in the video that you can see the underneath color kind of through my spray paint. I like doing mine this way. If you do not want to see the colors through, you may want to be a little bit more heavy-handed with your paint. I just really enjoy just kind of misting the paint over there, so it kind of gives like a muted color. That is, I guess, the best way to explain it. Just kind of mutes the underneath color, and then the power wash, you can see the vibrant colors poking through. And for my leopard spots, I did decide just to outline them with a black marker. This is just a Posca brand paint pen. You guys can use whatever your favorite brand is. I know we all have our favorites. The Posca brand, this one I believe I got on Amazon. I think that Michael's has them as well. But I just pulled up my decal and then just basically outlined where the spots were. So far I was really happy with how this tumbler was turning out. And here are my colored leopard spots that I'm going to apply. I thought that this green and pink went really well with the tumbler. This is kind of a holographic lined vinyl, if that's what you want to call it. I'm not even sure. But I did go in with some acetone and a Q-tip and just kind of cleaned up some areas before I applied this next vinyl. So for the colored leopard spots, I just kind of placed them where I wanted them around the cup. You know, there's no right or wrong way how to do this. It's just kind of, you know, your style, where you want to place them, how you want it to look. You can add just a couple or you can add a lot. So this is one of those things where I did kind of think about my design before I actually applied it. I did want to leave some blank spots that did not have leaves so I could apply my leopard spots. And once I get all my leopard spots on there, I am going to apply another layer of epoxy. So here are 2 cups after epoxy, and these are the decals I am going to apply. I kind of picked 2 areas on my tumblers that had blank areas or just spots on there that I wasn't 100% crazy about. And I did create this decal and just did an offset in silhouette. Most of my transfer tape is going to be lined. I like that it's lined to help me line stuff up if I need it to. These decals were at an angle, so the lines really didn't matter, but and decal 1 is done. So we're going to apply the next decal, and once the decals have set for a little while and had a chance to adhere to the tumbler, I will apply 1 or 2 more layers of epoxy. I typically like to apply 2 layers of epoxy over decals just to make sure that everything is sealed in really, really well. This one I did have a little bit of vinyl that was sticking to the backing, so I just used my little sharp tool that I use in almost every tutorial just to help get that backing off. And that is pretty much it for this tutorial. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial, and I hope you guys create a version that you love as well. Like mentioned, this is not my original design, but I have seen cups like this kind of floating around and wanted to make one myself. My E's did come a little crooked, so I did fix them. It's always great when vinyl does not cooperate. And here are some finished pictures of the cups. I really love how they turned out. You guys can see here how the glitter is kind of shimmery, shiny, iridescent. I love how it looks with the power wash and the holographic vinyl. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Both are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.